Do not draw boxes is a sentence I've said to a few people that asked me for advice, which came off as a surprise to them because all they knew me for was drawing boxes. Not just drawing boxes here and there, drawing boxes day and night, thousands of times. So I thought I'd make this video to explain why I'm not trying to rule out competition by telling people to not draw boxes yet, what is skill they need to train before moving on to perspective, and why some misconceptions related to drawing skills happen. First, let's clarify some important information regarding boxes and perspective. We draw boxes because the box is a simple object with sharp 90-degree corners, making it easy to be measured with perspective methods. You can then use the box to carve out the actual complex form you want, just as you would out of a wood block. Perspective is the rule set that allows us to replicate a real-world feel, which is three-dimensional on a two-dimensional surface, those two being length and width. So the reason why we don't start with boxes is quite simple, also very predictable after the information I just shared. For you to be able to replicate a third dimension using only two, you first need to master using the two dimensions you actually get to work with. I want to illustrate this point a bit more clearly with visual examples. When I want to measure complex objects with boxes, there is this method that I don't know the name of, but called the center plane method. Essentially, you draw the side profile of the object as a flat image in the middle of the box, and then you start measuring further using those planes as guides. Maybe you find this easy, maybe not, but if the flat shape gets even more complex, and the angle gets even more skewed, it becomes especially hard for artists of all sorts of levels. So we add, measure, a grid like this to make it easier. We also add the same grid to the non-skewed side profile and use that as a reference. As you might guess, there is no way you can draw the skewed version without being able to draw the flat version. This obviously is not the only way to measure out complex forms using boxes. The same logic applies to all the methods. It's just more in your face in this one compared to the others. No matter how well you replicate 3D, it is still a replica. This is also why I giggle whenever I see someone belittling the grid method, and maybe even applauding methods like the shapes, negative space, and other stuff. Those are all just ways of making comparing easier, as the biggest part of observational drawing is comparative measurement, since no one really wants to bother with millimeters and arc degrees. Your canvas is a big 1x1 grid anyway. Even if you are drawing on an infinite surface, your eyes still have a main area of focus that acts as a 1x1 grid. This is also why I don't differentiate between drawing an immobile subject from real life and drawing from a photo. In short, if you can see that this A line is 2 times as long as B line, and that they are also 2 times as long as B line apart, then it'd be impossible for you to draw the cylinder. So since someone that is able to do imaginative drawing or perspective would also be able to do observational drawing, why not just practice for that instead? Why go slow? Or why do some teaching regimens, even if they claim to be methodical, forget all about this fundamental? To answer these, we have to talk more about learning, studying, and teaching in general. Education generally aims to teach and train every student. This is why you start from lines and curves in the first months, then get through ABCs during the rest of the first grade, learn the ins and outs of grammar in middle school, and go up to writing novels and essays in high school or college. The path to learning a skill needs to be as precise as technically possible so that anyone, not accounting for disabilities, can learn said skill to a decent degree given they followed all the steps. We can't teach with assumed innate talent, due to various elements such as being more inclined, having learned a topic in another class, or having learned a different skill that can be easily transformed into another. There will be many steps in any given curriculum students can skip. This especially applies to students that are adults. For example, if you have already learned to write, when you start learning to draw, you might be fine foregoing learning how to hold your pencil, how to make straight lines, make curves, etc. because you have already done these while learning how to write, and the rest can be easily left to passive improvement. This will be even more possible if you do calligraphy or even something like decorative car painting. Nonetheless, it still needs to be acknowledged that the first thing you need for drawing is learning how to use a pencil. Similarly, it needs to be acknowledged that you need to learn to replicate intricate 2D subjects, that this is a step in the process that comes before perspective. Whether you forego it or not depends on you, but I think it's big and complex enough of a skill that the majority will need to spend at least some time on it. So why does it go unacknowledged? Or why are some people perfectly fine foregoing this step? Or why do some people completely ignore all these fundamentals and still draw crazy good? Drawing, especially observational, as a skill in some sense is closer to singing than it is to math or physics. Sure, drawing is more external. Singing, you need to learn to control your vocal cords, replicate what you hear, and all that stuff. Drawing too is more internal than we tend to realize. Especially with observational drawing, a lot of what you need happens in your mind. What happens on the paper is just a manifestation of it. Observational drawing is all about how well your visual perception is, like hearing, and how well you're able to use your hand, your voice cords, to replicate lines you have comparatively measured, just like with relative pitch. Singing is an integral part of all societies worldwide. Many have had no knowledge of notes up until recent years, and it's not that they didn't have do re mi, but they had some other scale. They simply had no systemization of how singing actually worked. Some of them didn't even have instruments to act as a physical representation of notes and our vocal cords. Yet they all have magnificent singing abilities, and they can not only sing their own songs, but also sing others when exposed to. So why, when you go to a singing class, they teach you the do re mi? Because if all teachers did was to say, I don't know, try to sing this song, and if you still can't do it by a week, then you should quit. It would not be a class or a school. It will be a talent, a genius recruiter. Maybe playing instruments fit better for a drawing analogy, since it is less dependent on intricate muscle and general body control compared to singing, but I'm sure you get my point. So why do some art classes start with all that stupid perspective bullshit, despite claiming to be methodical? Well, maybe they think observational drawing should be jumped over, that is easy enough. The rest I think have a different reason. A lot of people that start taking art seriously later in life tend to be people that have done it as a hobby throughout their whole life since childhood, since they ever held a pencil, which results in them already having pretty decent observational drawing skills. So these people find great success with learning perspective. Suddenly they become able to draw all the things they want, without being restricted to copying from a photo or a visual from real life. Up to this point is the exact same thing I've experienced. The rest is not something that happened to me. Since they owe everything to learning perspective, they think this must be the secret. This must be all you need. Not knowing this was why I wasn't able to draw how I wanted. Which I'm not blaming any of them for. It's a pretty reasonable conclusion to come to. It just doesn't work out the same for anyone that didn't passively improve at observational drawing throughout their childhood. And because it has already been so long since the last time they ever struggled with observational drawing, it's very easy to forget about it or undermine it. I don't think any of them are doing it out of malice. If you don't come from a constructionist drawing approach, everything I've said up to this point might sound like complete which speak to you. Because as much as there are teaching approaches that completely ignore observational drawing, there are also teaching approaches that stop at observational drawing. For those, imaginative drawing usually tends to be viewed as a blessing only a select few get to enjoy. Heck, I've even seen one person say, we see in 2D, we draw in 2D, so learning perspective is useless. I completely understand where these misconceptions come from, so I also want to talk a little bit about the third dimension, depth, and its perception. Humans are not born with the ability to perceive depth. We start gaining it at around 3 to 5 months, it improves significantly by 12 months, and finally is considered to have matured by around 8 years old. This is one of the reasons why hanging toys exist. Sure, it is entertaining for the baby, but it also helps baby train depth perception and hand coordination. The biggest way of perceiving depth is through movement. Eyeball movement, head movement, body movement, movement in the surrounding area, light movement, all of these aid us in perceiving depth. So it's understandable if you and nothing around you moves, the center area of your vision might feel really similar to a flat photo. But not being able to perceive it doesn't mean depth doesn't exist. It exists just the same. The baby will fall out of the crib even though it cannot perceive that yet. So that is why when we want to draw visuals that are not currently present to our eyes, we need to know how to communicate depth through lines on a surface. We are essentially creating a brand new world on paper with the help of perspective rules and methods. Maybe there is also an argument here about first training to perceive length and width on paper, then training to perceive depth on paper, just like how it happens in real life, naturally. But I'm not sure. I only thought about it just now as I'm writing the script. And yes, imaginative drawing is very achievable by training the necessary skills. It doesn't mean drawing without any references all the time. It just means not being restricted to direct or almost direct copies in terms of form, and having non-external tools to communicate your ideas as drawings. You can call it drawing without direct reference, or drawing from the mind if it works better for you. Another problem regarding how people are handling perspective practices is that I see so many people drawing boxes, drawing so many freaking boxes, yet all of them are wrong, and I can see that they are not even trying to make them correct. I was going to say 12 lines vaguely resembling a box. They don't even draw 12 lines, they draw 9, which is an even bigger indication of how they've got it all upside down. You need to draw through your forms. That is the whole thing. And the most important part about boxes, or perspective, isn't even the box itself, it is a circle around it. I also see so many people using guides like this to memorize cubic boxes at different angles, which is something I also tried at the start, but that is not what you need. That is not what you do with perspective. Again, you will need to understand the logic behind rotation, which is through the circle, not a bunch of memorization. You can't utilize those boxes anyway if you don't understand how they rotate. You'll have to memorize each object you want to draw from all those different angles over and over again, which is a complete opposite of what we're aiming to achieve by learning perspective methods. If all we were going to do was memorize 2D symbols of objects at chosen angles, it's better to just do it without the box. There are a bunch of other box and perspective exercises before you get to these cubes, but for these cubes, if you handle them in a purely 2D manner, something like this, the whole logic gets thrown completely out the window. This is why you first handle 2D and get to handling how to replicate 3D in 2D. When you get to perspective, you're not supposed to think of the flat grid, you're supposed to think of the skewed grid. The flat grid should only be used when you have a source to copy from, and that is to minimize the area you need to measure. The purpose of perspective methods is to draw what is not present, a visual that does not currently exist to our eyes, meaning there is nothing to directly copy from. I predict that someone that keeps the vanishing point rules and the circle method in mind and draws a lot without focusing too much on isolated box practices is going to have a much easier time in the long run compared to someone that doesn't know anything about the circle method and doesn't discover or develop any similar understanding themselves either, and draws thousands of boxes from reference. As I discussed earlier, subconscious/passive learning is very much a real thing with drawing, so we are comparing two people that don't learn subconsciously. Drawing objects from rotated references simply just does not fulfill the same purpose as rotating them yourself. I'm not saying this from an elitist box grinder POV. I'm saying this as someone that fell into the same trap back when I was a hobbyist and was trying to train drawing once every 3 months. I thought that I could train perspective skills and imaginative drawing by just drawing from references from multiple angles. I did this here and there from the years 2019 to 2021. But obviously that did not happen. Despite my observational skills not having rusted, this was my rotation performance at the start of 2025. It can work out for someone else, little bit thanks to subconscious/passive learning. And there is no way to know if you'll hit the same jackpot until you've wasted an exponential amount of time and energy. If you want the conscious training, that is not the way. I know because I'm probably on the most low end spectrum of people that are able to subconsciously learn drawing and people that are not. So if you want to sit down and do technical training, do the boring stuff, isolate the skills you need to their most basic components, and make sure you practice the exact thing you want to get better at. So what I'm trying to say in short is, there has been an uptick in interest in perspective-related exercises in the last year, and it seems that people have got it all wrong. I don't know if there's any blame on me, since I don't have that much of a presence online. None of my accounts are that big, and I think people think I'm a bot, but I just want to do my due diligence. If you care about my opinion regarding how to learn drawing, maybe you've seen my reels and want to kickstart your art learning journey by getting rotated, do not start with boxes. And if you do and struggle, maybe you even want to quit. It's not on me, okay? I've been saying this since the day when I ever talked about boxes online. Yes, you can try to hit two birds with one stone and ignore observational drawing. If you succeed, you'll be fine. You will be perfectly fine. It's just that you are way less likely to succeed that way.